That's perfect.
There's one back there. There's one back there.
Can I help? Oh, yeah.
You get that one.
There's one. Oh, come on. There we go.
Billy, can I help pick?
Now.
I carrots. So I can get.
I love celery mushroom.
Yeah, that's.
Oh my goodness, they're all.
It's a pretty big pepper. There's lots of them. Holy man. Nice remain. Two. Perfect. A little bit bigger than usual, but you're good. Hey guys, it's Sunday, July 17th. As you saw, we spent yesterday harvesting. A lot has changed in this garden in the past week. It's actually quite surprising how dramatic the changes have been. So we spent yesterday harvesting, weeding a little bit. We have a bit more weeding on the paths to do. That job is always not all that enjoyable, but still one of the things that has to be done. Our peas are our sugar snap peas have put on. They're gigantic now. Doing pretty well. They taste fantastic. We usually let them sit a little bit longer so that the peas inside develop, but any time between now and then is a really good time to harvest these. So we'll probably go through and harvest another batch today because there are thousands of peas here. It's kind of crazy. So we'll take a quick look at the highlights of the garden again this week, and yeah, do a little bit of harvesting. So let's get started. Okay, so normally we don't have to water too much in the garden. It's only if we've had, a week and a half of no rain. Again, most of the beds are covered in weed guard, which really hold the moisture very well in the soil. We do go through and water, obviously, the beds without the weed guard, the carrots, the onions, things like that. They obviously dry up just as much as every other garden out there, but the vast majority of our beds are covered. What we are going to do again this year has been a little bit odd in that when comparing to YouTube videos from last year, our plants are quite a bit behind schedule, so we are topping them up with a little bit of fertilizer. Bought one of these Chapman automatic fertilizer injectors. Works really well. Been using it past couple times. Fill the basket with water soluble fertilizer, and then it automatically dissolves and dilutes it for your garden hose. The grand plan is to eventually get this big tote, use this big tote as our rain barrel. It does require a bit of modification to our eaves and a little bit of groundwork and prep work, because this is going to be a heavy tote once it's full of rainwater. Plan is to eventually get this permanently situated somewhere so that we can just hook up the tractor pump and fertilize the entire garden all at once. But that's a long-term plan. Right now we're just going to hook this up to our garden hose and fertilize the beds.
Danger, danger, the floor.
Alright guys, the highlight reel. Blueberries putting on lots of new growth. Still not all that much production from these plants. But you know, just happy that there's a lot of new growth and the deers are leaving them alone, so that maybe next year we will have a record-breaking year on blueberries. This plant is really doing quite well. On the other side, the zucchinis have really taken off and are now starting to do what zucchinis do, produce tons of fruit. We were harvesting these already. That one looks ready to be harvested as well. The patty pans, again, starting their exponential growth phase, as it were. Tomatoes, yeah, they've gone a little bit crazy. We tried our best to keep up to taking the suckers out, but it's just yeah, it's just a losing battle. So we're just gonna let them go, and we still have lots of time in the season. There's lots of flowers out, quite a bit of fruit set all over the place, so we're just gonna let them grow, do their thing, and harvest as much as we can. Again, our broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage bed, still haven't opened this bed since we set these plants out. We haven't weeded, haven't done anything. The weeds are starting to show up, but again, the plants, by the time that happens, the plants are so far enough along that the weeds don't get any sunlight anyway. So, I mean, these cabbages are just gigantic. I don't think I've ever seen a cabbage leaf that big. They are starting to produce the heads. Savoy cabbage, there's a little head starting to grow in the center. Cauliflower plants are looking very healthy. No cauliflower yet. Still, even though these imperial broccoli plants are looking quite healthy, no broccoli heads yet. I'm expecting pretty soon. Again, we try our best not to go in here because we have started to see the butterflies out again, and you know, they're just if they see an opening, somehow they get in eventually. But these plants look crowded, but you know, they do very well in with this spacing. Mashed potato squash finally starting to take off. Again, these are part of the ones that are delayed quite a bit from last year. Surprisingly, our watermelon plants have now sorted themselves out and are starting to vine out. That plant remarkably survived. I don't believe that it actually is starting to put out some new growth. And same with that plant over there. It's somehow managed to survive. And the melon plants are, yeah, they're vining out, taking over, and doing really well. And on the other side, the peas continue to be pretty remarkable, actually, how much they've grown. There are peas everywhere. So these two rows are the sugar snap peas, and that back row again, just standard garden peas, the jumbo variety, and growing as tall as ever. Not much happening. I mean, the beans are growing up, but no bean set. They got a long time to go. We'll see what happens. They're a fair bit behind. They always do take a while. and when we direct sow them in the ground, it's pretty tight for our growing season. Cucumbers finally starting to vine out and set some fruit. The ones on the left here are the pickling cucumbers, and on the right are regular slicing cucumbers. And our cherry plants, this one is pulled through despite a little bit more insect damage this year, but you know, a fair bit of new growth. And his neighbor's really starting to get to get big, so we may be repositioning this trellis next year. This cherry plant is just gigantic, and we have a few cherries set. Not that many, not as many as I was expecting for a plant of this size. There's a couple under there that are set. Typically, at least what from the description of these plants, they are capable of producing, I think it was, 5 or 6 pounds of cherries per plant, and so yeah, we'll see what happens. They're sour cherries, they're not the sweet cherries, but they should be pretty good for drying and using them as dried, cranberries, similar to cranberries or raisins. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, the pepper plants continue to be performing extremely well this year. Try and get a better shot today of the fruit that's set. Yesterday or last week was a bit shaky. So we are the red knights here, which are the sweet bell peppers. We are getting huge peppers on plants that are, they're pretty small when you see these plants full grown. They can be quite large, but even at these small at the small stage, we're still getting peppers that are are quite large. And we've taken some for green peppers. We'll leave obviously the vast majority of these to turn red, and we still have some Super Shepherd pepper plants mixed in. In the jalapeno bed, starting to put on to get some size on the peppers. Again, you pick them when they're green for pickling. If you want them hot, we usually leave them until they're just before they're about to turn red. They get this kind of purple tinge to them, similar to the color of the stalks there. That's when they're super hot, and if you pickle them at that time, you'll get a really nice hot jalapeno. And then once they turn red, the plan is to smoke them and dry them and see if we can do some chipotle peppers. So everything's looking really good in this bed. Probably going to be one of the best harvests of peppers we've ever had from this garden. And not too much happening in the beet bed here. There's a bit of size already on them, which is encouraging. The harvest last year was a little bit disappointing, so we'll see what happens with our kind of spotty germination here. Wasn't all that great, but it's nice to see that we already have quite a bit of size on the beet, so we should be all right. Last year they were really small, and the onion set's doing much better than last year. Last year they didn't seem to do very well at all. And asparagus done. Dill is starting to shoot up. Again, now that we've started harvesting it, seems as soon as you start harvesting, even the smallest amount, they head skyward, and then yeah, you got tons of it. Taking a couple of romaine lettuce plants, give the rest of them room to to grow out a little bit, but the rest of these will probably be ready to be harvested by later this week. Definitely by next weekend, those plants will be due for a harvest. All right, and the last thing to note is that, not sure how things are where you are, but where we are, food prices have gone absolutely insane. We've noticed increases 40% for certain items. So while our harvests are, we're always trying to get more out of our garden, the value of what we're taking out has definitely shot up quite a bit. The small harvest that we did last week that you saw is probably worth easily $20, maybe even a bit more. So, just without doing anything, the value of what we are pulling out of this garden is definitely going up. We're keeping track of everything, and we'll give you a final rundown at the end of the year just to see what we get out of the garden. But yeah, it's unfortunately it's going to be up this year, even though our yield might be the same. And that's it for this week. So I'll see you next week.